Good morning, everyone. Good morning, classmates. My respect to our professor, Ma'am Nerissa Beatriz. Good morning, ma'am. So, ang napili ko pong topic ay tungkol kay Piaget or ang Piaget's psychological development. So, Jean Piaget's theory of cognitive development suggests that children move through 4 different stages of mental development. His theory focuses not only on understanding how children acquire knowledge, but also on understanding the nature of intelligence. I am Florena Obiasca, Teacher 1, currently teaching at Santo Niño Elementary School, Buhi North District. I am a kindergarten advisor. Piaget was born in Switzerland in the late 1800s. He worked for several decades on understanding children's cognitive development. So he was intrigued by kids' thought and behavior, worked to understand their cognitive development. So Piaget believed that children take an active role in the learning process, acting much little like scientists as they perform experiments, make observations, and learn about the world. As kids interact the world around them, they continually add new knowledge, build upon existing knowledge, and adapt previously held ideas to accommodate new information. Piaget was a precocious student, publishing his first scientific paper when he was just 10 years old. His early exposure to the intellectual development of children came when he worked as an assistant to Albert Bennett and Theodore Simon as they worked to standardize their famous IQ test. Much of Piaget's interest in the cognitive development of children was inspired by his observations of his own nephew and daughter. He earned his doctorate at age 21, began to study psychology, applying intelligence tests to school children. Piaget was one of the first to identify that the way that children think is different from the way adults think. Jean Piaget is known as one of the first theorists in Constructivism. His theories indicate that humans create knowledge through the interaction between their experiences and ideas. Piaget taught that independent exploration and discovery were important at all stages of cognitive development, in enabling students to lead their own learning in line with their current developmental understandings. Piaget's theory of cognitive development helped add to our understanding of children's intellectual growth. It also stressed that children were not merely passive recipients of knowledge. Instead, kids are constantly investigating and experimenting as they build their understanding of how the world works. Active learning, as opposed to simply absorbing information from a teacher or book, the child is seen as a little scientist constructing understanding of the world largely alone. He believed that learning is constructed whether it is something we are taught or something we learn on our own. Whether or not we are taught in a constructivist manner, Piaget believed we are constructing knowledge in all our learning. Piaget believed that all children try to strike a balance between assimilation and accommodation, which is achieved through a mechanism Piaget called equilibration. As children progress through the stages of cognitive development, it is important to maintain a balance between applying previous knowledge or assimilation and changing behavior to account for new knowledge or accommodation. Equilibration helps explain how children can move from one stage of thought to the next. In Piaget's view, a schema includes both a category of knowledge and the process of obtaining that knowledge. As experiences happen, this new information is used to modify, add to, or change previously existing schemas. Here is an example. A child may have a schema about the type of animal, such as a dog. If the child's sole experience has been with small dogs, a child might have believed that all dogs are small, furry, and have four legs. Suppose then that the child encounters an enormous dog. The child will take in this new information, modifying the previously existing schema to include these new observations. Not interested in applying his theory to school-based education, he called this the American question. Constructivist educators create an environment which encourages children to construct their own learning. But according to Piaget, we construct our learning regardless of how it is presented. According to him, the principal goal of education and the schools should be creating men and women who are capable of doing new things, not simply repeating what other generations have done. Here is the Piaget stages of cognitive development. Piaget stages of development are part of a theory about the phases of normal intellectual development from infancy through adulthood. This includes thought, judgment, and knowledge. The stages were named after psychologist and developmental biologist John Piaget, who recorded the intellectual development and abilities of infants, children, and teens. Piaget's four stages of intellectual developments are sensorimotor, preoperational, concrete operational, and formal operational. Piaget acknowledged that some children may pass through the stages at different stages than the averages noted above. He also said some children may show characteristics of more than one stage at a given time. But he insisted that cognitive development always follows this sequence. Stages cannot be skipped. Each stage is marked by new intellectual abilities and more complex understanding of the world. The first stage is the sensory motor. During this earliest stage of cognitive development, infants and toddlers acquire knowledge through sensory experiences and manipulating objects. A child's entire experience at the earliest period of this stage occurs through basic reflexes, senses, and motor responses. The infant knows the world through their movements and sensations. Children learn about the world through basic actions such as sucking, grasping, looking, and listening. Infants learn that things continue to exist even though they cannot be seen, or object permanence. Next is the pre-operational stage. So during this stage, toddler through age 7, young children are able to think about things symbolically. Their language use becomes more mature. They also develop memory and imagination, which allows them to understand the difference between past and future and engage in make-believe. But their thinking is based on intuition and still not completely logical. They cannot yet grasp more complex concepts such as cause and effect, time, and comparison. Conservation of matter, understanding that something doesn't change even it looks different. Shape is not related to quantity. Picture two 4-year-olds, both with a cookie of the same size. One child's cookie has been cut in half, while the other's is whole. Depending on where the children are developmentally and their personalities, the one with the whole cookie may point out that the other child has more. Children at this age are learning how to conserve and may truly believe that the child with 2 cookie pieces has more, even when the 2 cookies are halves of the same whole. So, concrete operational stage from about 7 to 11 years old. At this time, elementary age and pre-adolescent children ages 7 to 11 show logical, concrete reasoning. Children's thinking becomes less focused on themselves. They're increasingly aware of internal events. They begin to realize that their own thoughts and feelings are unique and may not be shared by others or may not even be part of reality. The last stage is the formal operational stage. Adolescents who reach this fourth stage of intellectual development, usually at age 11 or above, are able to use symbols related to abstract concepts such as algebra and science. They can think about things in systematic ways, come up with theories, and consider possibilities. They also can ponder abstract relationships and concepts such as justice. Although Piaget believed in lifelong intellectual growth, he insisted that the formal operational stage is the final stage of cognitive development. He also said that continued intellectual development in adults depends on the buildup of knowledge. Development happens from one stage to another through interaction with the environment. Changes from one stage to stage may occur abruptly, and kids will differ in how long they are in each stage. Cognitive development can only happen after genetically controlled biological growth occurs. Piaget believed that children's spontaneous comments provided valuable clues to understanding their thinking. He was not interested in a right or wrong answer, but rather what forms of logic and reasoning the child used. After many years of observation, Piaget concluded that intellectual development is the result of the interaction of hereditary and environment factors. As the child develops and constantly interacts with the world around him, knowledge is invented and reinvented. Research has disputed Piaget's argument that all children will automatically move to the next stage of development as they mature. Some data suggest that environmental factors may play a role in the development of formal operations. The theory seems to suggest that reaching the formal operational stage is the end goal of development. Yet, it is not clear if all people actually fully achieve the developmental tasks that are the hallmark of formal operations. Even as adults, people may struggle to think abstractly about situations, falling back on more concrete operational ways of thinking. Most researchers agree that children possess many of the abilities at an earlier age than Piaget suspected. Theory of mind research has found that 4 and 5-year-old children have a rather sophisticated understanding of their own mental processes as well as those of other people. For example, children of this age have some ability to take the perspective of another person, meaning they are far less egocentric than Piaget believed. That's all my report. Thank you for listening. God bless everyone.